Imagine my surprise as I am getting ready to sit down and have dinner on Tuesday when I get a message that Stephanie McMahon just resigned from her position as the co-CEO and chairwoman of WWE. At the same time that a press release is issued announcing that Vince McMahon has been unanimously voted in as the new executive chairman of the board of WWE. We lose one McMahon, we gain another McMahon. Stephanie's letter read as follows. Dear WWE Universe, about 8 months ago, I took a leave of absence and within a few weeks, unexpectedly had the opportunity of a lifetime. I had the privilege to return as the co-CEO and chairwoman of the board of WWE. I cannot put into words how proud I am to have led what I consider to be the greatest company in the world. Working alongside a remarkable leadership team and one of the strongest executives I have known in my co-CEO, Nick Khan. Our founder, Vince McMahon, has returned as executive chair and is leading an exciting process regarding strategic alternatives. And with Nick's leadership and Paul Triple H Levesque as Chief Content Officer, I am confident that WWE is in the perfect place to continue to provide unparalleled creative content and drive maximum value for shareholders. WWE is in such a strong position that I have decided to return to my leave and take it one step further with my official resignation. I look forward to cheering on WWE from the other side of the business where I started when I was a little kid as a pure fan. I will always remain dedicated to WWE. I truly love our company, our employees, our superstars, and our fans. And I am grateful to all of our partners. Thank you for everything. Then, now, forever, together. Signed, Steph. Nick Khan is now the sole CEO of WWE. A man who first came to the company not even a full 3 years ago as a sports agent. Remember Arliss from HBO all those years ago? Fucking Arliss is signed here by the company, hired to be the president, and has worked his way up to co-CEO and now CEO in a takeover that nobody expected. And someone who stands to make out very nicely from an eventual WWE sale. Nick Khan is the real winner in all this. But we also got this quote from Vince McMahon in his press release. First, I would like to express my full support for Stephanie's personal decision. Yeah. I'll bet he does. I will forever be grateful that she offered to step in during my absence, and I am truly proud of the job that she did co-leading WWE. Stephanie has always been the ultimate ambassador for our company, and her decades of contributions have left an immeasurable impact on our brand. Stephanie has since gone under the knife to have surgery on her ankle and says that she has already started post-surgery rehab. This woman stepped down so fast she broke her ankle. Just when we thought this month could not get any crazier, we got enough crazy for the first week of the year, right? Just when we thought this happens. This is on the heels of Vince McMahon bullying his way back into the company. So much for their anti-bullying campaign. Removing 3 members of the board of directors to make room for himself, and George Barrios and Michelle Wilson, who used to work for the company before Vince fired them, causing 2 other board members, by the way, to resign because, as revealed in a filing with the SEC this week, they objected to Vince McMahon's return. This was a board of directors that had unanimously voted against Vince McMahon returning last month. A board that included his daughter, Stephanie McMahon. She did not think that her father returning was best for business either. But as PW Insider put it, in talking to people within the company, the T-Rex is out of the pen. And once the T-Rex is out, it's going to do what it wants to do, and nobody's going to tell him otherwise. Nobody's going to stop the T-Rex once it goes on a rampage. Now, Mike Johnson reported earlier that same day, we've gotten a lot of emails from readers asking what the reaction has been to the return of Vince McMahon and the potential sale or those working for the company. While we cannot say this 100% across the board, we have heard from quite a few people who have been less than thrilled about the idea of McMahon returning. As we've reported before, there's been an absolutely positive culture change within the company in terms of quality of life for those there in recent months, and there is certainly a fear that it will revert backwards if McMahon gets more and more involved in creative and other day-to-day aspects. Some have noted that the immediate positive is that as company employees, they were able to buy stock at a lower price, and now they are getting a real reward out of the current upswing in the stock due to interest in a potential sale. So, if they sell, they reap that reward. Others, however, are worried what the company would look like after a sale, especially if it ends up with a huge corporate entity as the new owner. The fear is that a new corporate overlord would immediately identify some of the current WWE employees and departments as redundant if they absorbed WWE into their own ecosystem. For example, NBC Universal would have their own marketing department, which could mean that if they purchased WWE, they wouldn't need two departments to do similar jobs. And that is actually a very standard thing when it comes to these types of acquisitions and sales. That's a common occurrence. So they have good reason to be worried about that, but that would hardly be a WWE thing. But he says overall there is far more of a worry and a feeling of unease, to say the least, as no one knows what the next move could be from Vince McMahon or the company itself. With that worry coming after a huge surge of pride and some relief in working for the company in the short post-Vince McMahon era, it has been a very jarring week for some. And that update came before the news broke about Stephanie. Now, you're going to hear a lot of people telling you that Stephanie resigning is not that big of a deal because she had already taken a leave of absence last year. And then she only came back to step into the role of co-CEO because her father stepped down and they needed somebody to fill the gap. So she, took the hit and she did it for the company. And now she's just resuming her planned leave of absence. And that sounds all fine and dandy, except that it was less than a week earlier that WWE held an all-hands-on-deck meeting with employees, with Stephanie and Nick Khan and others, and Nick Khan had this to say. He said, in terms of the day-to-day of the company, nothing is changing. Steph is in her role, I am in my role, Frank is in his role, that's Frank Riddick, the president of the company. Paul is in his role, that being Triple H. And Kevin Dunn is in his role, unfortunately. It's entirely plausible that she does want to spend more time at home with her family after all that she went through. Her husband, almost died. She's got 3 kids. Maybe she has, taken a step back to reevaluate her life and she wants to take some time away. But there is plenty of reason to be skeptical and believe that there is something more to this than meets the eye. There's something about this just is not kosher. The timing of this does not make any sense. Having just told all of their employees in a period of I'm sure, great anxiety, if anything, even if she wanted to leave, right? They made these comments at the employee meeting, and you would think that if nothing else, she would certainly want to stick around for a little while to put people's minds at ease. But days later, she announces her resignation. The timing of this just does not make any sense. And then suddenly, right, it does happen that way. And on the same day that her father, who it's been said she did have issues working with, and that Nick Khan would often be a buffer between the two, not only between her and her father, by the way, but between Triple H and Vince as well. The fact that they buried her and her job performance very publicly after she announced her leave of absence last year, that was no accident. The fact that she agreed with the rest of the board that now would not be a good time for her father to come back, and he did anyway. And then when the day comes that the announcement is made that he's back, she resigns. Not only as co-CEO, but from the board as well. Last year when she took a leave of absence from her position, she didn't resign from the board. This time, this was a clean break. She is 100% gone from the company. And Fightful had more about the reports from The Observer that Stephanie and Vince had issues working together. They said it was noted to them by several sources at WWE headquarters that when Stephanie's team was dismantled last year, in their words, a usually composed Stephanie was disheartened and frustrated about how it all happened. Now, for those who don't know what that's in regards to, Fightful reported last May, when Stephanie announced her leave of absence, that most of her team that she had worked with directly was dismantled in the months prior to that in their many rounds of office layoffs. Her taking her leave of absence came on the heels of that happening. So yes, Yes, I do believe there is more to this than meets the eye, and anybody who doesn't think so, I think, is being naive. There was a report from Axios this week about all the WWE drama that said, according to their sources, Stephanie and Triple H had both opposed a sale of the company. Meltzer claims that isn't true, and Axios is wrong. They both stand to make a lot of money from a sale, but I can see why they would oppose it. They might want to keep it in the family. They probably always envisioned themselves taking it over one day. That was always believed to be the plan. And now Vince is storming back into the castle to try to sell it off to the highest bidder as quickly as possible, and there's no telling where that might leave the two of them. I can see why they would be against the idea of a sale, but this is a company that has clearly been prepped and primed for a sale for at least the last 2 years, if not longer. We've been talking about this for a while, ever since they started laying people off left and right and cutting costs, right? Budget cuts, right? How long has this been going on for? This is a company that has been primed for this now for years. Now, Triple H led a talent meeting backstage before Smackdown on Friday to let the talent know that Vince McMahon's involvement with the company is strictly to spearhead the search for potential buyers. He said none of this will affect the current creative team or process, but he also stressed that anything can change. And according to Fightful, Triple H did say that maybe he and Vince McMahon have had conversations about creative, but Vince defers final say to him. And that right there actually is not shocking, right? They're family. They probably see each other at family functions. It's not like, I'm sure it's not like they're not on speaking terms. That doesn't shock me, but that right there, that admission right there is why so many people are worried about Vince McMahon eventually coming back to creative full-time, because he still wants it. He's done it for decades. He can't get it out of his system. He told Pat McAfee last year, remember he was on Pat McAfee's show before WrestleMania, and he was talking about this kind of stuff. It's still fun for him, you know. He's done it for so long. They also reported, by the way, that Kevin Dunn spoke at the meeting on Friday, and he said that he had worked for Vince McMahon for 40 years, and since coming back, yes, a grand total, by the way, of 4 days ago when this happened. Since coming back, Vince hasn't said a peep to him about making changes. And I read that and I laughed. I said it hasn't even been a full week. Give it time. As somebody who knows Vince McMahon for as long as Kevin Dunn does, I'm sure he knows that. But he can't say that because the purpose of the meeting was to put a positive spin on things and put people's fears to rest. Maybe it worked. Maybe it worked for some of them, but that roster has every reason to be worried right now, especially if you are someone who Triple H brought back to the company in the last 6 months. Someone who Vince McMahon fired, or someone who Vince McMahon never really saw anything in. I can see how it would be jarring to be happy 1 minute and then suddenly have all of this uncertainty hanging over everything, not only with Vince being back, but the potential sale of the company. Which leads us to one of the most embarrassing days for wrestling media and wrestling fans online in general on Tuesday night.